Jeff, thank you for a very thoughtful and appropriate summary of the state of the art. Now, of course, in order to stimulate interest and controversy, we have to make it one or the other. We can't have it both ways at SAGES right now. So our next speaker will be Dr. Paul Curcillo. Hi, Paul. And he is going to advocate for single-site surgery.
Well, a lot of people are wondering what the hell I'm going to say today. I want to thank GV and David for having me here. This is very exciting for us. I mean, we started this stuff at SAGES about 3 years ago, and to come to this point where we get to be part of this symposium is very important to me, very important to us as a group trying to push this forward. So I appreciate the time, and I think we're going to have one of the most exciting times in surgery in the next 4 to 5 years as we go forward. I do speak on single port access surgery for a number of different companies. We don't sell any products, which is why that number is getting smaller, but we have been getting the word out there, and we've had a lot of support from a couple of companies who believed in it from the beginning. So the question they asked me is, should we be abandoning notes and moving on to single port? And I think probably a more appropriate title for this talk is, should I let Mark or Santi take my gallbladder out through my vagina, and why not? This was us 3 years ago. We were a little dog walking around trying to do something new, and along came some of the big guns. And then over the next 6 months or so, I thought to myself, first, if I'm a good, strong man, the nice thing to do is to bring my wife to the show, who did this with me. And we gathered a few of us, about 7 or 8 of us, that started doing single port, and lo and behold, this is what ended up happening. And now we were up against everybody talking about something new, and the notes thing was going, the notes train was going. I feel very strongly that the notes train was at the station, and everybody was at the station but afraid to get on board. And there were about 100, 150 people on board that train, and this is where we stood. So what happened? Somewhere back in 2007, everybody started doing this. Abe Rain in England, myself and my wife, Prashanth Rao and Pradeep Rao from India, a couple of people from the country started picking it up, and we began seeing single port site, single, whatever you want to call it, happening, and we all began doing this. And the question is, why did this take 10 years from the initial single port procedures already reported back in 1997? And we looked back and we all ran around showing pictures like this, no data, no science. We just showed a lot of belly buttons. And that was what we were basing all of this on, was the cosmetic outcome that we got. The publications started to come, and they were mostly case reports. Everybody would present, look what I can do. And then we started presenting other things. There were product papers. Every company got a doc to write a paper about their product. We started seeing papers about series of 10 or series of 15. Very few large series were coming out, and this is what we've been running around talking with. A couple of case reports here, our personal experiences, and then there were a lot of review articles. And my most enjoyable thing about reading a review article is when it's written by somebody whose total experience in this field was 2 or 3 papers, 2 or 3 patients. So the publications weren't there, the science wasn't there. And why wasn't it going to take off? This is what the conventional wisdom said. We didn't have the instrumentation, we didn't have what we need. And we proved them wrong. We were able to do this with standard instrumentation. We were able to do it for less cost. So I began thinking, what was the Holy Grail? What was the thing that was holding us up from making this really take off? And Jeff already alluded to it. You know what? Notes had an acronym. We needed an acronym. We needed something to call it. And what that lent itself to was marketing. And the problem with single port, the problem with single site, whatever you want to call it, is it was a huge marketing ploy on the part of a lot of companies to sell a lot of products. And I think it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And I want to change that tonight, because I want to tell you, this is being driven by some very good physicians, by some very good surgeons, but what we need is data. And that's what we're going to start doing. We have papers now in press that will be coming out showing 2 years experience, showing 300 cases, multi-institutional, multiple people can do this. We have training papers coming out. We have safety papers coming out showing that this is as safe as standard surgery, multi-port surgery. So the science is coming. It's been 2 years, and you guys have all been patient, and now we're going to show it to you. And over the next year or two, you're going to see a lot more of this rather than the case reports and just looking at a lot of belly buttons. So where are we now? Well, what we've proved over the last 2 years is it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's actually the size of the fight in the dog. And we've grown to the point now that I think we can stand up and say we're on our 2 feet and we're going to grow this thing. The question is, how is it going to tie into notes? This is compliments of AJ Kitahara from Japan. He's the one that gave me that slide. So where are we? Widespread application is growing. Everybody's doing this. We're at a very critical time. Complications are starting to show up, and we're going to have to address them, and we have to start revolving what we develop around operations, not the other way around. With regards to notes, are we going to compete with notes? Are we going to replace notes? Are we a stepping stone to notes? Is this just a transient phenomenon, or is this something that's the future of surgery? And I'd ask you to consider this. I would ask you to look at this and what we've done in the past 3 years. Needlescopic mini laparoscopy has regrown. It's a great procedure. We've rebirthed that. People are starting to talk about it again. Port reduction in hiding ports is clearly taking off now in that everybody wants to do it. And if you look at the publication rates, maybe it was just timing, but guess what? More and more people are publishing about notes. Maybe we were the impetus for that. Maybe we weren't. Start thinking about reduced port surgery. Start thinking about the concept of doing everything through less holes, through smaller holes. Not necessarily one hole, but let's do it through less than we were doing before. Let's make it better. We spent the last 2 years showing that we can move triangulation, we can do everything through one hole. Now all we have to do is move the hole. And that means we're helping to show that we can do all this. As you guys went through the mouth, we can do it through the belly button. Notes is expensive, single port's cheap. Notes can be done by only a few people. Single port can be done by a lot of people. You look at it, the benefit, the risks of each are at the extreme ends of the spectrum. By the same tokens, look at the benefits. Notes was your desire to do something that none of us thought was possible. Single port's going to give us that ability. And if you think about it, the desire to do something has to come along with a ladder or a stepping stone. And I personally think that we're not going to see one of them die. Notes used to be a leap of faith. Notes is no longer a leap of faith. Notes is where we're going to be heading. More importantly than where we're going to be heading, everybody's going to be able to get there now. And I think that was a huge problem. We were in a position where not everybody could play, not everybody was allowed to be in the sandbox. And I'm a firm believer that when you have an entity ongoing that a lot of people are against and a couple of people are for, it's a revolution. Single port in notes is going to become an evolution. We are going to evolve surgery as a group. This is not going to be one side or the other. This is going to be everybody growing this together. Everybody was at the train station. Nobody wanted to get on that train because they were afraid of where it was going. I would pose this to you. Now everybody's on that train, and I think the best part is we don't know where we're going. We're going to something bigger. We're going to something greater because we're no longer afraid of change. We see change. I think we're going to see notes and spa, and I think we're going to see a marriage of the two. And out of respect to Jeff here, is going to get wise counsel from its uncle of endoluminal therapy. So we're going to see notes, single port access, and endoluminal therapy meld into one great thing that with a lot of time, a lot of foresight, and a lot of work is going to give us an entirely new platform in surgery. And I think it's the most exciting time in minimally invasive surgery since the gallbladder in 1989. Thank you.